Namaste students. In the previous video, we had reached a point in Act 5, Scene 1, where Prospero has declared that he's going to give up his magic. He's going to burn and bury his book and his magical wand. And after that, we know that Ariel had been sent on a task to get all the conspirators near Prospero's cell, to escort them near Prospero's cell, and there was a magical circle drawn near the cell where all the conspirators would be asked to stand there. So the conspirators, Alonso, Antonio, and Sebastian, followed by the courtiers, Adrian, Francisco, and Gonzalo, come near Prospero's cell. But important thing to remember here is that they are all in a state of bewilderment and frenzy because of Prospero's charm that was created by Ariel. So even if they are going to see Prospero, they may not recognize him unless and until Prospero lifts his charm from them. Okay, so solemn music. This is the point when Ariel is going to enter and he's going to bring the conspirators near the cell. So a solemn music was played, and Ariel, followed by Alonso, who with frantic gestures, attended by Gonzalo, Sebastian, and Antonio in like manner, in a similar manner, attended by Adrian and Francisco. They all enter the circle which Prospero had made, and there stand charmed. Charmed is something very important to remember because they are not yet, their senses have not revived since they were under Prospero's charm, which Prospero observing speaks. So Prospero observes these conspirators and he speaks to the audience. Remember, the conspirators cannot at this moment recognize Prospero or probably even see him because they are under a charm. So Prospero begins to speak, continues to speak. He says, a solemn air. Solemn air refers to a comforting, serious music. Air refers to music. Solemn refers to comforting, serious. So this music is going to be used as a therapy, something that is going to comfort the conspirators who have suffered on this island, first because of the shipwreck and the tempest, then because of the loss of the prince, and after that the banquet and the harpy. So they had gone through quite a bit of suffering while they were on the island. So now Prospero is asking for solemn air, solemn music, which is going to be like the best comforter to an unsettled fancy. Unsettled fancy here refers to an unsettled state of mind. They were in a fanciful state of mind under a charm. Unsettled because it was disturbing. So unsettled, disturbing. Fancy refers to a charmed state of mind. So in order to cure that unsettled fancy, Prospero is providing solemn music, solemn air by Ariel. Cure thy brains. So this solemn air is going to cure your brains, is going to heal, is going to comfort your brains. Now, useless, boil within thy skull. So now this fancy that is boiling within your skull, which means in your mind, is useless because Prospero's purpose of revenge, Prospero's purpose of making these conspirators realize their sin was complete. So this charmed state now is useless. It must come to an end, and hence the music. So he says, now useless, boil within thy skull. So this fancy is boiling in your skull and it is useless, so it has to be cured. There stand, for you are spell stopped. All of you who are standing there are all spell stopped. Spell stopped here refers to are under a magic spell. Stopped because their senses were frozen. They were almost stopped. So you are in a spell stopped condition. And then he refers to Gonzalo. He addresses Gonzalo and says, Holy Gonzalo, honorable man, mine eyes even sociable. So he of course has high regard for Gonzalo, since Gonzalo had helped him against the odds at the time when he was exiled. So he says, Holy Gonzalo, honorable man, mine eyes, Prospero's eyes, even sociable. Sociable here means full of sympathy, sympathetic. So Prospero is feeling sympathy for Gonzalo, who was also made to suffer here. To show of thine to your appearance, looking at Gonzalo, seeing in the condition he is in, Prospero feels sympathetic. So he says, mine eyes, even sociable, to the show of thine to your appearance, fall fellowly drops, is going to shed fellowly drops, is going to right now shed fellowly. Fellowly over here refers to friendly, sympathetic teardrops. So Prospero is almost in tears looking at Gonzalo's state. The charm dissolves apace. Now, very quickly, the charm is going to dissolve, the charm that Prospero has put on all these conspirators. And as the morning steals upon the night, melting the darkness. So the charm is going to dissolve and disappear, like how the morning sets in and darkness dissolves. So he's over here using a simile, if you can see, and as morning steals upon the night. So as, that's why it's a simile. What he's trying to do here is create an image in our mind. All of us would have seen the time of sunrise, when slowly on the horizon light spreads out and the darkness vanishes. Same way, this magical spell that Prospero had cast on these conspirators will vanish very quickly, and they will be brought back to their senses. So this imagery of morning setting in and darkness vanishing is very symbolic here, because it also in a way states that these men who had committed a crime out of greed and ignorance will slowly get wisdom like the light. So darkness is ignorance, darkness is their sin, light is their enlightenment, is their wisdom. So the way the morning spreads over the light on the horizon and the darkness vanishes, same way here, Prospero will lift his charm up from these conspirators, and these conspirators will be brought back to their senses. So their rising senses, so the rising senses, gradually their senses will rise, begin to chase the ignorant fumes that mantle their clearer reason. So as soon as their senses rise, it will begin to chase away the ignorant fumes. Ignorant fumes, ignorant refers to ignorance, fumes refers to a state like sleep. Because they were under a charm, they were called to be under ignorant fumes. Okay, so that will gradually start vanishing. That mental here means cover. So till now they were ignorant because of Prospero's magic, and it had covered their mind and brain, their reasons, their understanding. They did not know what was happening to them. They were lost, they were clueless. So all of that will gradually start vanishing. Okay, their clearer reason, and now they will start seeing a clearer reason as soon as their senses get back. Oh, good Gonzalo, my true preserver. So Gonzalo had preserved Prospero in the time of difficulty by giving him furnishing his boat with books and fresh water and some food. So he says, "Oh Gonzalo, good Gonzalo, my true preserver, and a loyal sir to him thou followest." And you are a loyal sir to whoever you are serving. So he was serving Alonso, and he was loyal to Alonso. I will pay thy graces. I will pay for your favor that he had done on him. So I will pay thy graces home, both in word and in deed. Both in word, by being grateful, by thanking him, and in deed, also by his actions. Most cruelly didst thou, Alonso, use me and my daughter. Now he is over here talking to Alonso, and he is sort of accusing him of treating him and his daughter very cruelly. He says, Alonso, you treated me and my daughter cruelly by exiling them. So he says, thy brother was a furtherer in the act, and your brother, meaning Sebastian, was a furtherer, accomplice. He helped you. He was along with you in this act, in this cruelty, in this sin. And then after talking to them, he is going to then move to Antonio. But he says, Alonso, thy brother was a furtherer in the act. Thou art pinched for now. Pinched, punished. Both of you are punished for that right now. Sebastian. Then he moves to Antonio and he says, flesh and blood, you brother mine. You are my own flesh and blood. You are my brother that entertained ambition, expelled remorse and nature. Your ambition was so high that you entertained your ambition. Made way for your ambition, and you got away. Expelled meaning you kept aside your remorse, any sort of regret, any sort of guilt. You got rid of guilt because your ambition was high. So you expelled remorse and nature. Nature, by nature we are brothers, but you forgot nature, you forgot our relationship, you forgot your guilt and conscience because your ambition was high. Whom with Sebastian, and along with Sebastian, whose inward pinches therefore are most strong, would ere have killed your king. So you betrayed me years ago, and now on this island, along with Sebastian, whose inward pinches over here refers to conscience. That Sebastian's conscience also you tried to kill by instigating him to kill his brother the way you killed your king, the way you exiled your king, same way you would have killed your king, meaning Alonso, on this island. I do forgive thee. And finally, he says, I forgive you to Antonio. This is very important because this line you can quote in your answers and you can prove how Prospero, in spite of suffering betrayal, he's ready to forgive Antonio. I do forgive thee, unnatural though thou art. Even if your act was unnatural, unnatural here refers to not a brotherly act. A brother would not naturally behave like this. Uh, so he's saying that your act was unnatural. Unnatural though thou art, their understanding begins to swell, and suddenly he can observe from their faces that their senses are now coming back to them. It's reviving. So he says their understanding begins to swell, conspirators, and the approaching tide will shortly fill the reasonable shore that now lies foul and muddy. Again, he is using an imagery of a seashore where a tide would come in, fill up the shore, and clean the muddy shore. Same way, their senses will come in, clear their sins, they will realize their fault, it will clear their sins, and it will make them understand and make them realize of their sin. So he says their understanding begins to swell like the way waves begin to swell and reach the shore. Same way their understanding is swelling. Okay, and the approaching tide refers to their approaching senses, the senses that are coming to spirit, will shortly fill the reasonable shore. Very shortly their mind will get back their senses that now lies foul and muddy. At this moment their senses were lying foul and muddy because they were guilty, they were suffering, they were punished. So all that will now be wiped off with the senses that will come back to them. Not one of them, he says, not one of them that yet looks on me. But as of now, none of them will be able to recognize me. That yet looks on me, that will be able to recognize me or would know me. They wouldn't even know me because remember, they would have not expected Prospero to be alive, A, and B, Prospero was right now dressed like a magician. He looked very different because he did not, the last time they all saw him was when he was a duke, when he was dressed like a duke in a grand attire. But at this moment he is a poor magician living on an island, secluded. So they would not even recognize me. He is telling this to Ariel, and he's saying, Ariel, fetch me the hat and rapier in my cell. Rapier is a very thin sword used by fighters. So that sword and hat, which is the sign of a duke, which is a part of the attire of a duke. So that was lying in his cell, and once he's going to now dress as a duke, probably these conspirators will recognize him. So fetch me the hat and rapier in my cell. So Ariel exits and returns immediately with the hat and the rapier. I will discase me. He was wearing the magical robe, so he will take it off, discase the magical robe, and myself present. And I will present myself as I was sometime Milan, as sometime back, few years back, I was the Duke of Milan. I will present myself in the attire of the Duke of Milan. Quickly, spirit, thou shalt ere long be free. Quickly, dress me up like a duke, and very soon you are going to be free. Ariel sings and helps to attire him, to attire Prospero. So we will, in the next video, we will see what happens when the conspirators will recognize Prospero and how they will react to Prospero being alive.